Miriam, would you like me to introduce you?
Well, go on.
Okay. Miriam, my cousin, Štajner Aviezer, is a child Holocaust survivor from Slovenia. She was 11 years old when the war ended and started school. Miriam became an elementary school teacher in Slovenia and started to be involved in the life of the Jewish community and was a youth leader of Jewish youth. One of the main activities was to find Jewish identity of youth growing up in an atheistic and assimilated culture. In 1971, Miriam emigrated to Israel. She married Shmuel Aviezer, a writer originally from Iraq. They have a child, Nogit, and 2 grandchildren. Miriam started working in Yad Vashem, interviewing Holocaust survivors. One of the people she interviewed was Erwin Miller from Kibbutz Ma'abarot, one of the few survivors of Jasenovac. Miriam translated to Hebrew a book written in Croatian by Erwin Miller, Izabran za umirenje, published by Yad Vashem.
Izabran za umiranje.
Umiranje, hvala. Miriam is a member of Yad Vashem committee that recognizes the righteous among the nations. She is the author of the book, The Soldier with Golden Buttons, which presents a child's view of the Holocaust. You will be able to read the book and other things that Miriam wrote during the break. Miriam is very involved in the activities of the Association of Jews of former Yugoslavia living in Israel. One of her main activities was to produce the documentary film, The Forgotten Ones, about the Holocaust in Yugoslavia. During the break, you will have a chance to watch the movie. By the break, I mean the week between the 2 sessions. Miriam Štajner Aviezer was born in Karlovac, Croatia in 1930. Sorry.
Maybe I go on here.
What?
Maybe I will continue here.
Yeah, why don't you continue?
Okay. So, I was 5.5 years old, and all I wanted was to be 6.5, so I can go to school. I already knew who will be my teacher. My parents already brought me a school bag, and I was waiting anxiously to this day, which never happened. We lived in a small town in Slovenia, where my father ran a pharmacy. My mother was very active in helping Jewish refugees who were coming from Austria, Germany, and Czechoslovakia on their way to Palestine, and they stopped in our village. My mother Zora and her friends found ways to house the refugees in their homes. They provide the proper documents and help them to continue their journey. The refugees were telling us what was happening in their countries, and they warned us that it will only get worse. They tried to convince us to run away also. My parents thought that in this little village, where we were the only Jewish family, nothing will happen. But it did. The war in Yugoslavia started in April 41. The country was divided under occupation forces of Germany, Italy, Hungary, Bulgaria, and were held by the local Quislings, especially the Ustasha. Our village was under the Italian rule, and that was not cruel, but my mother was very concerned about what is happening to her mother and the family that lives in Karlovac. She traveled with me on the train to Karlovac. We arrived to Karlovac exactly when the Ustasha came to take all the Serbs and the Jews to that camp. I was separated from my mother, and they put me in the train with other children. These 4 days that I was separated from my mother is actually my Holocaust that I describe in my book, The Soldier with Golden Buttons. The train where I was put in were with other children, all ages. There was only one girl who was a little older, maybe about 14. She took command of everything. She divided big and small children, and every big child was in charge of a small child. I was very proud that she put me in the group of big children and gave me a small girl to take care of. The name of the girl was Nicole. She spoke French and was very small, and all the time was asking in French, "Où est maman? Où est maman?" I told the older girls that I do not speak French, and maybe she give me another child. And then she teach us something so important in life. She teach us what is the power of a smile. You just smile. The little children are like little monkeys. Whatever you do, they will do. So if you smile, they will smile too. And if smiling is giving, is helping the children, you just smile. There was only one child who spoke Croatian. His name was Vlado. He agreed to supervise me. He taught me some lessons. For example, how to eat bread. He said, "Look, you have to be like a bird. You take one crumb and chew it until it disappears. Then took another one, so eating bread became just a game." And believe me, it was not so difficult to be a little hungry and thirsty. What was difficult was to bear the question, where is my mother? Why is not she with me? Another thing I remember later, after the train stopped and some horrible things happened, we were sitting together trying to find some water. We were very thirsty, and one of the children discovered a puddle that was very far away, and we all started running, and nobody was anymore caring of others. Everyone was worried about themselves. We were all pushing each other, and everyone knew that he is more thirsty than every other child. And if he will not get to the puddle before, then it will be no water there. And we reached the puddle, and it was enough water for everyone. And only then, when we were sitting, actually, each next to another, suddenly we felt that we doesn't want to be anymore together. Everyone wants to be alone, just leave him alone. Well, I met my mother in Stara Gradiška, but somehow, what I cannot explain until this very day, I just didn't want to go to her. I was blaming her that she was not with me, and how could she let all this thing happening? I was too young to understand, and I couldn't just be close to her. Many things happened in the years after we left. We were in Stara Gradiška. We were liberated because my father succeeded to prove that we are from the area under Italian occupation, and we were released from Stara Gradiška, but not released. We were just transferred to another camp. It was the Italian camp in Calabria, in Italy, Ferramonti. We were liberated from Ferramonti in 1943, actually by the Jewish brigade that came to Europe to liberate camps. And we joined the partisans, the Yugoslav partisans that had in Italy a hospital for wounded partisans. And we joined the staff of the hospital and were there until the end of the war. We came back to Yugoslavia, and when I was 11, I started learning in school. I became a teacher. I studied at the University of Ljubljana, and I start, as Gianni says, I start to be involved in Jewish life with Jewish youth. And later I moved to Belgrade, and I can tell you that these 8 years that I was living in Belgrade were maybe my more luckiest years. In Belgrade, I learned what does it mean to be a friend, prijatelj, friend. And I gained so many friends among the youth and the children that I was a teacher of them. And these relations are lasting until this very day. I was looking on the list of the people that are participating in this conference, and I found among them so many friends that I was their madricha at that time that I was in Belgrade. I came to Israel in 1971. Here I met Shmuel, and we had a family, and I started working at Yad Vashem. And and I was interviewing Holocaust survivors. Believe me, it is not so easy to interview Holocaust survivors. And sometimes you are feeling that the stories of the survivors are getting into you, and somehow you cannot go home with all the hate that you are sharing with the survivors. I remember one day when I was interviewing a survivor who was in Auschwitz, and Mengele made some experiments on her, and her story was so hard, so difficult, that I felt that I am not clean enough to go home. I remember that moment, an old Japanese story of the samurai. Samurais were going for war for a long, long time. And on the way home, they feel that their hands are full of blood, their heart is full of hate, and they just couldn't go like this home. They were sitting in the forest and making some and arranging flowers to be able to take out the hate and to bring inside a beauty of the flowers. And only when they were ready, when they felt that the beauty entered them, only then they entered their house. I did the same. I stopped at the flower shop. I was sitting in the garden of the shop and arranging flowers. And only when I was ready, then I came home to hug my family. In Israel, I was very involved in the Hitahdout Olei Yugoslavia, which is the organization of the Jews from former Yugoslavia living in Israel. And here I also gained so many friends. We were just meeting all the time. One of our big meetings was the picnic on Sukkot, when we are getting all together. And also, just like this, meeting with friends. And I think I'm very happy, and I'm very lucky to have so many friends around the world, and to live here in Israel, in a little town, Nes Ziona. And I have a message. We need to learn to love more freely. That is what gives us strength. During the Holocaust, I was separated from my mother. I blamed her because she was not with me, and I felt that all my love for her was trapped inside me. It was only many years later, when I myself became a mother and gave birth to my daughter, then I understand what she must have gone through without my love. I gave my mother a big hug and finally was able to love her freely. She passed away a few months later. It was as she has been waiting all her life for that hug. So, love. Well, thank you, dear friends, that you gave me the possibility to share with you my memories. And shalom. Shalom from Israel.
Thank you, Miriam, very much.
Yes.
I'm sure we will keep your advice and hug our parents, living and dead. So thank you, really.
Thank you too.